Good afternoon, Who Dat Nation, and happy week 5, Bayou Blitz family. For the first time since December 8th, 2024, we get to talk about a New Orleans Saints win. And to break it all down on your Bayou Bliss postgame show are your hosts, myself, Bob Rose, and him, Brendan Boylan. Brendan, it's been a long time, but here we are.
Yeah, yeah. It's nice to. I don't know about you, but for me, for majority of this one, I wasn't super concerned once we got into the second half, or at least the first drive of the second half. So to have like a second half of the game where you weren't getting super frustrated about things, there wasn't a lot of things to nitpick, I guess is what I'm getting at in the second half. That was nice. I'm sure for Spencer Rattler, it's nice to get the monkey off the back and get the victory. You know, we talked about that list maybe Wednesday of the quarterbacks who had started 0-10 or worse, and how long it took them to get their first victory. The worst being Deshaun Kaiser, 0-15. He never got his first victory, unfortunately for him. I think it was a good game and maybe a monkey off the back game for Kool-Aid McKinstry as well. Who had 2 interceptions, the first 2 of his NFL career. There's a lot of different things about this game where I think it's going to instill more confidence into certain guys on this team. And I think that is as valuable as getting the win itself, to be able to go back on Tuesday into the locker rooms and into practice and feel a little bit more confident than you did the week before and the week before that. So, Bob, I want to let you steer the ship. 26-14. It could have been a bigger or larger margin of victory. But where do you want to start when it comes to talking about the first win in what you said, about 10 months?
Yeah, December 8th. It's been 8 straight regular season losses. Uh, since the Saints last got a victory against the New York Giants in Week 14 last year. So not only did Spencer Rattler get the bugaboo off his back, and I thought Rattler played pretty well today, but Kellen Moore gets the first win of his head coaching career as well after an 0-4 start. So congratulations to both those guys. I thought Kellen called a pretty good game offensively. And, again, I thought Rattler played well. Still, if we're going to nitpick, too many passes behind receivers. He's got to give his receivers a chance to make plays. But he did make a couple nice, intermediate throws this afternoon. And of course the 87-yard touchdown strike to Rashid Shaheed, which really felt like sorry guys, I have the hiccups. That 87-yard touchdown strike to Rashid Shaheed really felt like a momentum changer. Obviously the first long pass of any significance that Rattler has completed in his career. And I thought Shaheed had a wonderful game. Let's start offensively. What were your thoughts, Brendan, about the game plan, about Rattler? And I mentioned Shaheed, but I thought Olave probably played his best game of the year as well.
Yeah, Olave did, despite the fact that the yards per catch numbers are still not where you want them to be, but a lot better, a lot surer hands. I didn't love some of they weren't really dump downs, but throwing 5-6 yards short of the sticks to Olave. That happened like 3 separate times.
Yeah.
But it is what it is if you want to nitpick. I thought the offense, though outside of the big play, was a little lackadaisical, didn't finish drives in the red zone. Mm-hmm. I thought they did okay, particularly because those first few kick returns were atrocious, and starting field position was atrocious.
Yeah.
I almost texted you about that and said, do we really just need to talk about special teams? because special teams has not been good for the Saints, and we'll get to them here in a little bit. But I thought Rattler was good. I'll throw his numbers up on the screen: 20 of 30, 225, a touchdown, 21 rushing yards. I thought it was interesting that there were more looks today of designed runs for Rattler. I felt like that was interesting. It was nice to see Taysom Hill involved again. I know it was minimal. I know for the most part it was very predictable. But for a fan favorite guy to come in and, pick up a first down on 3rd and 1, throw just a dying duck of a pass down the seam, but, complete it for 19 yards or 20 yards and get the Saints into the red zone. It was good to see. I'll tell you what I noticed and what I thought was the most interesting statistic was just the lack of touches for Kamara, which I think is becoming a weekly conversation for us. And he had 8 carries, which was second most. Kendra Miller had 10. Kamara had 4 catches. You guys saw the graphic for those of you who watched the game on TV that Kamara is now top 5 all time in receptions by a running back. And I think he's definitely getting to a point where you look at some of those statistics and you're really going to have a long conversation about, is he going to get in the Hall of Fame? And if so, is it going to be like a first ballot, second ballot, third ballot, so on and so forth? But we are seeing less use out of Kamara week in and week out than years past, which I understand. He's at that magical 30 years mark where you start seeing a little bit of a drop off, but I do find that interesting. That's something that I'm going to put an asterisk in or put a pin in, because I'm sure we'll talk about that more on Wednesday. But I thought the offense was good enough, not great, right? In all honesty, without being the Debbie Downer, because they did win, if you take away the Rashid Shaheed 87-yard touchdown, was this offense any better than they have been in previous weeks? I think the answer is no. But that might have been one of the better throws we've seen out of Spencer Rattler in his NFL career in terms of just down the field. We know the arm strength's there. We always have. We just also know that with that arm strength does not come the greatest accuracy. He hit Rashid Shaheed in stride, which is one thing. And you just brought it up, passes behind receivers, or, you even have, just to throw an example of another moment in the game where Jackson Dart did not hit his receiver in stride and allowed the Saints defender to, get back and make a big play on that flea flicker attempt. So he hits him in stride. Shaheed gets to about 23 miles per hour, which I think they said was the fastest of any offensive player, according to Next Gen Stats for the season, which we know the kid can fly. But it was good. It was good to see. It was good to see them capitalize on a shot downfield like that. I am still concerned about the running game. I don't think that they have had steady success in that. And I understand the Giants front four, some of those guys on the front four, Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, Abdul Carter, like those aren't nobody names, but I feel like they probably should have ran the ball a little bit better against them today. But overall, I think they did, and obviously enough to win. But again, if you take away the Rashid Shaheed shot, I don't know. I don't know how good this offense really was today. But hey, you know as well as I do, those big plays, those plays over 20, 25 yards, if you have more of those, you typically win the ball game.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, you do bring up a great point, about the offensive production outside of the long pass to Shaheed. I also thought Spencer Rattler made 2 terrific passes. One on the 4th and 5 on Groupie's second field goal miss of the day. beautiful pass to Shaheed to convert that. And another earlier in the quarter on a slant route. I'm pretty sure it was to Olave to convert another third down. So I'm seeing some development in the offense. I'm just as concerned at the running game as you. I thought that they would be able to run the ball on the Giants off tackle. And while they did get a couple nice gains, critical gains, from Kendre Miller and Alvin Kamara, it's not enough. You need more from that running game. I'm not as concerned about the Kamara lack of usage coming out of today as maybe you are, because I'm seeing him used more as a receiver. Now, Alvin had 2 drops today. He's got to knock that shit off. He's got to catch the ball. That is what he's on the field to do. And outside of that, Kamara, pulled in 4 receptions for 28 yards. Not pretty, but I'm looking at the kind of routes that they were running him on. They were wheel routes, option routes out of the backfield. Those are the plays where Kamara creates matchup problems for the defense. So if Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier and Spencer Rattler can take that out of today's game, I think that that's something that we could see more of in the subsequent weeks. And if you see more of it, it's bound to start hitting on some plays, especially if Rattler is beginning to heat up on deeper and intermediate throws to kind of loosen that coverage up, which let's face it, coverages have been cheating up all season long, and why wouldn't they? Because we've talked about, we've analyzed, we've written about, how the Saints have been completely inept at making plays down the field. Well, if you start to hit more of those, it's going to make those coverages pay for cheating up. Now, all of a sudden, Kamara has a little bit more wiggle room when he runs those routes out of the backfield. But like I said, I was looking at the types of routes, that they were running Kamara on, and even though I cursed Alvin out on those 2 easy drops, I was grinning because I was like, okay, this is what I want to see from Alvin Kamara in this offense.
You brought up Chris Olave. I brought up Chris Olave as well. But a nice bounce back game for Chris. Those numbers, yards per reception, are not necessarily where you want them to be still.
No.
But sure hands from Chris today.
Drew a couple penalties too.
Yeah, I think he was in a better mindset today. I think everybody was on the same page, which helps a lot, right? I mean, look, you see the numbers there. 7 receptions, almost 60 yards, still under 10 yards a reception. You want a little bit more out of Olave, but he's doing what he is being asked to do, which I think we can appreciate. Let's talk about the defense, because the defense is really what won the game, right? Because the amount of takeaways that they had. Now, I'm super happy for Kool-Aid McKinstry. So was the guy wearing the Kool-Aid head in the crowd that they kept panning to. There's going to be a lot of oh yeah tweets and comments about his 2 interception day today. Now, neither of those were necessarily game-changing moments because they were late, but
they snuffed out comeback attempts, though, so they were key.
The guy had such a rough start to the year and is still getting adjusted to being the number 1 corner for a team in the NFL. We kind of talked about getting monkeys off the back. I think for Kool-Aid, it's a similar thing, where it's just, okay, we got the first career interception down. Made a nice play to get the second one. Those were big deals. The safety play look, we were concerned with the safety position going into the year. And that was before the Blackman injury. That was before the Reed injury today. And you're sitting there and you're like, oh my Lord, like there's not a whole lot of guys here. Sanker's been really good. He's been very good. And I know for Howden, fumble recovery for a touchdown. By the way, second longest fumble recovery for a touchdown in team history, tying a good friend of ours, Tyrone Hughes. 87-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown back in the 90s. Again, that ties the second longest in team history.
Now, another friend of ours, Keith Mitchell, has the longest, a 90-yard fumble recovery for a return for a touchdown. So the Bayou Blitz checking off prestige boxes today.
Yeah, it's checking off Saints record books today. But it was good to see these young guys make some plays. It was good to see a guy like Brian Bresee, who I am still eating my words from earlier in the offseason, where I was like, I don't know where he fits on this team, but he continues to make plays. It was good to see Demario Davis, a veteran guy, force the first fumble. So all of those things, it was refreshing to see, because you know as well as I do, Bob, this defense is not very good on paper. And it is going to be a major problem for this team. And the way that they're going to be able to steal a few games is doing what they did today, forcing takeaways and capitalizing on those takeaways. And the Saints did that today against a young quarterback and a young running back.
Yeah, they did. First of all, this run defense still has a lot of work ahead of them. They did not perform well against the run. The pass rush was infuriatingly non-existent. And this is against a Giants offensive line considered the worst in the league, one of the worst in the league in pass protection, and you couldn't sniff Jackson Dart until the fourth quarter. The penalty call on Carl Granderson's stack, by the way, complete corrupt bullshit. But luckily, it didn't cost the Saints the game. Completely agree with you about Kool-Aid McKinstry. Speaking of complete corrupt bullshit, the pass interference call on Kool-Aid that kept the Giants, I think it was their second touchdown drive, alive. Complete corrupt bullshit. Kool-Aid bounced back to have a great game. You mentioned Sanker. You mentioned Howden. Quincy Riley played a very good game too. Didn't make those splash plays that Kool-Aid, Howden, Sanker did. Sanker had a few really nice pass breakups too, by the way. Everybody's going to point to the fumble recovery, and I can see why. But Sanker, and when Howden came into the game after Reed went down, Dart was looking for plays deep. He was throughout the game. Those safeties were taking away that option. And on at least a couple of Dart's scrambles, not design runs, but scrambles, he had forever in the pass pocket before he finally pulled it down and took off with the ball. And, credit to Jackson Dart and his athleticism, by the way. I think this young man's going to be a good NFL quarterback. Maybe not great, but a good NFL quarterback. But yeah, he had all that time, and I already mentioned the ridiculous lack of pass rush. But the reason why he had to finally take off and run with the ball is because Riley, McKinstry, Alontae Taylor, Howden, Sanker, they did not give him anywhere to throw the ball. And throughout the game, yes, I know Malik Neighbors is out for the year. Unfortunate for both Neighbors and the Giants. But New York still has a lot of speed at receiver with Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton, and those guys. Hyatt didn't have a catch at all. The one play Slayton did make down the field, Demario popped it out for Sanker's fumble recovery. And Robinson didn't do anything down the field. The Giants tight ends, who just started off absolutely desecrating the Saints defense. New Orleans have found an answer for them too. So you're right by saying the defense won this game, but if we're going to get more specific, it was the New Orleans secondary that won this game with their takeaways, with the ability to just stripped the Giants of any big play capabilities whatsoever. This was by far the best game the secondary, the defensive backs have played as a whole this season. Finally looking like the young dynamic group. We knew they were going to give up some plays, Brendan, just due to their inexperience. But we were waiting for that athletic ability, that aggressiveness, and that exuberance, to kick in. And today it really did.
Yeah, I do want to go back to the pass rush. And again, another thing that I'll be, paying for in some of the comments, and certainly from the Bob Rose comments as well. And that's about our friend Chase Young, who missed another game today. The pass rush was very quiet. When you pay a guy the amount of money that they paid Chase Young, you expect a guy like that to battle through some injuries, but also be somewhat serviceable and be a spark for you in those moments. God, the Saints could have used it today. They really could have. Granderson had his moments, obviously should have had a sack. That was one of the, I think Nick Underhill tweeted, one of the softest calls maybe ever. But it was one of those, when you see the flag thrown, you're like, oh, it's got to be a hold, like on the opposite side, right? It's got to be. And you're like, wait, what? And I'm sure there were some explicitives from you and some explicitives from me, because you're just trying to wrap your head around it. But I digress. Even some of the stunts that the Saints threw weren't productive. Now, again, you credited Jackson Dart for some of his athleticism. He was able to get outside the pocket and extend some things multiple times today, and you have to tip your cap to Jackson for that. But it still is concerning when you start throwing different things and, as you mentioned, one of the weaker offensive lines in football still not phased. It is a little concerning. You and I talked about earlier in the offseason, rather, that if Chase Young was able to be healthy, which obviously was and still is a big if, it was going to be a little bit of a relief for a guy like Cameron Jordan, who wouldn't have to necessarily play every down. And while Cam was productive, got a hand on the second interception for Kool-Aid McKinstry. While it wasn't much, it may have been a fingernail, but still got a piece of it.
And he had a couple nice pressures later in the fourth quarter too.
He did, and a fumble recovery. Well, the ball literally fell in his lap, but still, you got to jump.
Right.
You still got to jump on it, right? So things like that. Man, it would have been nice to have a guy like Young. I think it's something we talked in the offseason, even after they signed Chase Young back, was like, how else are they going to get better at this position? And they really didn't.
Nope.
And it's showing, again, for the second consecutive year, that this is not a really strong pass rush front seven. I also want to touch on Pete Warner, because you had mentioned the tight end dominance for the Giants early in the game. We have seen Pete Warner be not effective in pass coverage. Maybe more so this year than years past, or at least it's more highlighted, or it's more optimal for people to be able to see this year. We've talked about it for years of where is there going to be an athletic linebacker that can drop in coverage and do this and do that. How worried are you, especially because of, the safety depth and maybe lack of linebacker depth, about tight ends being able to carve this Saints defense moving forward?
I'm very worried. No, I don't have the schedule in front of me, to calculate what kind of tight ends the Saints are going to be facing through the rest of the year. But they were getting torched by the likes of Daniel Bellinger, he's the kind of player you'd love to have on your roster as a second or a third tight end. Great blocker. He's a Foster Moreau is what he is. And they were getting torched by that. Now, Theo Johnson, a more athletic guy, similar type of athlete to Jawan Johnson, actually, who had 2 infuriating drops today, by the way. Theo, I was a big fan of, even back at his days at Penn State. So a guy like Theo Johnson is going to create some mismatches. So I am very worried about how the Saints are going to match up against tight ends. I'm not going to fault their struggles against Bellinger and Johnson on Pete Werner, because frankly, I saw Pete Werner blitzing more often than not in passing situations, as opposed to in the past we've seen Demario Davis be the blitzer out of the two linebackers. So maybe that's one solution to keeping Werner out of coverage, especially in obvious passing situations, is to just bring him downhill as a blitzer, as opposed to putting him in space as in coverage responsibilities. I still say the other potential solutions are sitting on your bench. Maybe not with Danny Stutzman, who's a similar player, physical attribute wise to Werner, but athletic coverage specialists. Jalen Ford, Isaiah Stallbird. Again, we are nitpicking here. I thought the Saints had a nice game plan after those first two drives where the Giants just lit them up. They really settled down. Now they still struggled against the run throughout the game. That is something that this team needs to address. In the trenches. But Dart completed 26 of 40 passes for 202 yards, during the game. But remember, he completed his first 6 throws. So you take that out of the equation, and you're talking about a rookie quarterback that you kept in check, at least through the air, maybe not with his legs, but through the air during the course of the day. So to borrow your phrase, Brendan, about what you said about Chris Olave, the pass defense did what they were asked to do, coverage wise, but still concerns going forward, certainly.
Sure. No, ultimately, Bob's right. We're nitpicking, or at least I'm nitpicking. But it was ultimately the second half. I think the Saints were clearly the dominant team, and the team that made plays down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
You want to continue talking about people that didn't necessarily make plays or didn't do what they were asked, since you just used that phrase again? Man, special teams. And I want to start with what I was harping on. Now, some of it got cleaned up, but I was harping on just kick return was atrocious early. And I understand this whole new thing last season is still a learning process for some people, but something as simple as the Saints starting at the 20 instead of the 35 because taking a knee in the end zone, that's a 15-yard difference, right? Those are things that these guys, Velus Jones and Kendre Miller, have to be aware of. One of them was a very well-executed kickoff where the ball barely bounced within the landing zone.
Yep.
Right? But having, I guess, the mental fortitude to be able to either take that knee in the end zone and be able to say, okay, let's get the ball at the 20 opposed to getting the ball at like the 11 or whatever it may have been. Things like that need to be, I don't want to say coached better, but the guys have to be aware of things like that.
Executed better, for sure.
Executed better. I mean, and again, I understand it's new for everybody. And for Kendre and Velus Jones, not something they were doing a whole lot of last year. But they still got to understand that. And it's something you have to understand now and moving forward. And that goes for any sport or any level of football as these kickoff rules continue to evolve, right? It's going to go a little off topic, but I remember specifically an instance a few years ago in the Canadian Football League with a guy named Lucky Whitehead, who used to play for the Dallas Cowboys, was the return specialist in the Grey Cup final. And the team was down 2 getting the ball back with an opportunity to score and win the Grey Cup. Well, what did he do? He fielded the ball in the end zone and took a knee. Well, in Canada, if the ball goes through the end zone or is a touchback, it's a point to the other team. So opposed to being able to go and win the game with a field goal, the best they could do was tie the game with a field goal. They end up going to overtime and losing. Just because that simple thing didn't click. Now, that's a dramatic, comparison. But things like that have to be executed better.
Well, they do, and they're still, they're still not performing well on kick coverage. They gave up 2 long kickoff returns this afternoon. Kai Kroger late in the fourth quarter. You have the field position advantage on a 4th and short. Kellen Moore correctly, decided to not go for it and kick the ball, deep. But Kai Kroger had a horrendous punt to give the Giants outstanding field position when the game was still in question, by the way. And Blake Groupie missing 2 field goals again. Yep. Now, one of those I think was a 53 or 54-yarder, made longer by the fact that a poorly executed quarterback draw 2 plays prior lost you 3 yards. Well, if you have those 3 yards on that kick, the kick's good because it just curved at the last minute. But I mean, Blake and the other miss by Blake was a 46 or 47-yarder.
Makeable.
Blake has got to convert those because you're going to be in close games this year. And the difference between winning and losing close games is more often than not on special teams. And you and I don't want to feel like we're piling on negative stuff in a win. But this could have very easily been a loss if the Saints don't come up with a couple of those turnovers because of the special teams miscues, because of the lack of pass rush, because of the inability to run the ball consistently. Again, these are things that are going to get cleaned up. I think we take out of Week 5, a happy mood. Because the Saints won, and the Saints were able to do things that they were not able to do in the first 4 weeks to get that win. So 100%. Let's not harp on the negative here. A lot of positive things to take out of it. First and foremost, a young team gets their first W. That does wonderful things for momentum, Brendan.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I talked about how coming away with interceptions, if you're a guy like Kool-Aid McKinstry, if you're a guy like Spencer Rattler, being able to convert downfield for a big play touchdown, something that I'm sure Rattler in the offense has heard some of the noise from the media and how the Saints have not been able to do that effectively this year, right? The guys can say all they want that, we're just focused on us. You hear those things. Those things instill a lot of confidence. Like, hey, we got one. We got one shot downfield. If you're Kool-Aid McKinstry or some of these guys on the defense that, were able to force a takeaway. Hey, we got one. Hey, we could do this next week. We could do this week after week after week. It instills a different type of confidence going into Tuesday. Cameron Jordan famous for the 24-hour rule. You don't really, yes, the 24-hour rule still applies for victories, but it's a lot easier to come in on Tuesday after that 24-hour period and be able to go, okay, we won, opposed to having that 24 hours to kind of like sit on a loss and then go into a Tuesday and try to start fresh. It's much easier. A lot of confidence is going to, follow this team into next week. And what I think is another winnable matchup next week against New England. I do want to address some comments. Fear asks, is it time to move on from Groupie? I would be shocked if the team does not try out kickers this week.
Yeah.
To at least put some pressure on him.
Right? Yeah. And I love Blake Groupie. And I wouldn't cut him on a whim because you need an answer for who's going to replace him. And right now you don't have that. But I agree with you, Brendan. I think they're doing themselves a disservice if they do not try out some kickers at the very least.
Absolutely. I think the other positive thing that I really want to touch on is this was another game where the offensive line kept Spencer Rattler clean. Rattler didn't get sacked today. And This is the fourth game that the Saints haven't had their projected starting five. Last week was the only time they did, and it didn't last very long because Ruiz got hurt. So you're still kind of not necessarily plug and playing guys, but it's still a shuffle up front. And I thought they were pretty good in pass protection. As you mentioned, Bob, running the ball, that's a different conversation. I felt like the offensive line could have been better, in the run game, but they kept Rattler clean, which does a lot for a quarterback when they don't have to feel like they have pressure down their throat every single snap.
You know where they were. The offensive line was especially impressive in pass protection. Was along the interior where they've had their biggest issues. Torricelli, Simpkins, he might be a player, man. Eric McCoy is starting to look like the center that we've come to expect. And Trevor Penning may have found a home on the inside. The fact that Rattler didn't get sacked, I'm actually going to credit Rattler more than the offensive line as a whole, because the Giants did bring some pressure, especially early on. When you have Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, a player we both love, and Abdul Carter on the edge, they were giving Kelvin Banks and Talise Fuaga some issues. Banks and Fuaga held up fairly well, but they were still getting there. It was Rattler who was recognizing the pressure, moving around well, knowing when to get rid of the ball, but also hanging tough in the pocket on several of those throws. So I thought, and this will not be reflected in the numbers. I thought that was where Rattler played extremely well this afternoon.
Yeah, pocket presence has been a big growth for Rattler this year. I do credit the offensive line because it is a lot easier to stand in the pocket and make some of those decisions when you're Spencer Rattler, when you're not on your back a whole lot. So I do have to credit the offensive line for that, especially the deep ball. Interior pressure from the Giants on that deep ball, but Rattler stood in there and made the throw. And so I do have to credit the play of the interior of the offensive line. It's funny that you said maybe Trevor Penning has found a home. And maybe funny's not the right word. Maybe ironic is the word. Because, man, that guy's just been trying to find a home. And it wasn't on the right side. It wasn't on the left side. And this was like the last-ditch effort to try to find a spot for Penning. But I go back to when we did that draft and some of the knocks on Penning and how it was maybe he would fit better inside, but the worry was, well, how tall he is, how is that going to affect sight lines for your quarterback and this and that. But he's been good, right? I wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, A+, like, oh my gosh, the Saints, found, a diamond in the rough, but he's been good.
Yeah, and this is only Trevor's second game at guard too. Remember that. So it's still a position that he is learning. I thought he and Simpkins played extremely well considering what they were facing today.
Absolutely, and Simpkins is. I kind of chuckle and I laugh a little bit, or I smile if you guys are watching, because, well, shoot. What was one of the one spots throughout the offseason was like, this team has no depth. Like, no interior depth on offensive line is something that we talked about a lot. But this undrafted kid has been really good through a game and a half. And I think that is something to note as well. Bob, I want to close out our conversation today by, I know you're going to do a game balls piece. I know you got a lot of things coming up. But how about like an unsung hero or a guy that might not get a game ball from you or a game ball from Kellen Moore today that you thought was particularly good for the Saints?
Can I cheat and go two?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's our show. You can do it. It's a victory. We can go 2. We can do 4. We can do 20. Like, we don't know how many wins we're going to talk about this year. So yeah, absolutely.
The two rookies, and we've just talked about them. Quincy Riley at cornerback and Torricelli Simpkins at right guard, replacing Cesar Ruiz. Riley got. I don't know if Riley was the official starter or if it was Alante Taylor, but Riley basically got the snaps that would normally go to Isaac Yiadom. And of course, Simpkins was in place of the injured Ruiz. Now, I have been calling for both Yiadom and Ruiz to be benched. Not rooting for anybody to get injured, but that's how it finally happened. And I thought each guy stepped in. Will they get official game balls from me? No. Not with how well Rattler played, how well Howden, Kool-Aid, and Sanker played. But if you're giving out an unsung medals award, I think that these two guys deserve it. And it makes you. They're rookies. So there's going to be some speed bumps, but it does make you excited when a rookie steps into the lineup, kind of thrown into the fire a little bit, and plays well for a team that is in rebuilding mode. And when you can find a piece, if you find a piece in Riley, a 4th round pick, or Simpkins, an undrafted guy, that's literally like striking gold, or hitting the lottery if you're having a bad day. I don't want to jump too far ahead and crown these guys as answers at their respective positions yet, but I really love the way that each young man, Quincy Riley and Torricelli Simpkins, played this afternoon.
When you're able to find a serviceable guy in day 3 of the draft, 4th round, or an undrafted guy, right? You said you don't want to crown them as answers to some of those positions, but when they can be serviceable, it's a big deal. And today they were more than just serviceable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is something to celebrate. Kind of like you said, for me, not a guy where statistically you really look at it and you go, whoa, with the numbers or anything. Mine's going to go to Kendre Miller, who led the team in carries today. And this is why I'm going to give it to Kendre Miller. Only 41 carries, only about 4 yards a carry. Again, nothing spectacular. I don't know if he had a catch. He had 1 catch for 6 or 7 yards. The reason I'm going to give it to him is we kind of talked about Alvin Kamara not getting a whole lot of carries today, right? Only 8 carries. Well, the fact that you did not have to hand the ball to Alvin Kamara late in the game when you tried to run the clock and you wanted to run inside, that is something that does a couple things. One, it keeps Alvin a little healthier. It prolongs some things, which is super important. But 2, for a guy who dealt with injuries for his first 2 years and was in the doghouse for majority of his 3rd year, it does a lot of confidence building, something that we've talked about a lot for the last 40 minutes. It does a lot of confidence building when you can turn to number 5 and say, hey, go out there and we just need to run clock and we trust you to hold on to the football. We trust you to put your head down and pick up some hard yards for some tough sledding. Those things are super important. And for me, that's why Kendre Miller is going to get that unsung Medal of Honor today. Because it's going to be valuable down the road for both him and Kamara if he can be a guy that they can rely on late in between the tackles. Something that the Saints have really been lacking over the years, really lacking since Latavius Murray's stint with his first stint with the team. So that'll be my unsung hero. Bob, it's nice to talk about a victory. It is very nice to talk about a victory. It is very nice to be able to talk about this team in a positive light. And I'm really excited for the fact that we don't have to go on Twitter this week and see so much negativity. I'm really happy I don't have to scroll on my phone and see Kool-Aid McKinstry sucks. I'm really happy I don't have to go on my phone and necessarily see all these people calling for a change at quarterback. I told you on Wednesday, not you, but you, the listeners, I told you guys on Wednesday when we had this conversation that if the Saints won today, it was going to be much more difficult to make that change
Mhm.
than it would be if they lost today. Now, you want to talk about even more difficult? If the Saints stack 2 wins back to back, then we're in a whole different stratosphere of when that change may or needs to happen. I actually had a message right after the game from one of you saying, is it time to start having the conversation about Rattler starting the rest of the year? No, that is
Hold up.
way
Yeah,
too
hold
early.
up.
We're not even there yet. Nowhere close to being there. But it is nice to see that there are some fans that are excited and now all of a sudden have some confidence in some of these guys. So with that, Bob, closing remarks, and where can people find you on the World Wide Web as you have some fun articles to write this week because we have a victory.
Well, I mean, most of them are fun, especially when people read them. Um, listen,
I love the subtleness of it, Bob. Very subtle.
First of all, for those of you, whether you're tuning in live or catching it on the replay, thank you for tuning in to the Bayou Blitz Week 5 postgame show, a postgame show that's brought to you by our friends at Get Checked or Check Out. Get checked or check out. Check out the website at the bottom of the screen. It's tcynow.org. First of all, I want you to check out the website because I want you to donate. They're an organization, a cause that's there to help us, but they need our help to do it. If you or a family member are diagnosed with a negative health issue, I'll just call it that, and you're obviously you're chock full of fear, concern, worry, indecision. You might not know where to turn next. That's why Get Checked or Check Out is there for us. They can help you or your family, point you in the right direction for treatment options, therapy ideas, research options as well, and so many other things. So again, jump on that website, donate a little bit, check them out, and I hope you or none of your family members have a need for it. But again, if you do, that's why they're there. Get Checked or Check Out, along with Brendan and myself, want to remind everybody that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Pink October has been Pink October since the 1980s. Breast cancer is the second most commonly diagnosed cancer globally. Therefore, it's of vital importance to stay informed and proactive about getting regularly screened. That includes regular mammograms, awareness of your own family history, and self-checks at home. Early detection can and will improve your treatment outcomes, and you can also help yourself along by maintaining a healthy weight, getting regular exercise, eating a healthy diet, limiting your alcohol consumption, and absolutely positively do not smoke. So again, we're going to be talking about Breast Cancer Awareness Month through the rest of October on our Wednesday shows and our post-game outings. But you can Get Checked or Check Out. In the meantime, Get Checked or Check Out. Their major fundraiser during the course of the year is the Original Go Black and Gold Celebrity Charity Fan Cruise. The 2026 cruise is going to be from March 26th through March 30th. This year's cruise is sailing out of Jacksonville, Florida, and docking in the Bahamas, which is a new destination. If you are coming from the New Orleans or Gulf Coast region, there are packages available leaving from New Orleans, to go to Jacksonville, or you can just fly in or drive in yourself, depending on your location. But make sure you book your cabin very, very soon. You can book now through Summer Cochran at Seven Seas Travel. Summer's number is 985-643-6958. Again, those cabins are going to start to go real fast, and you can book only with a down payment, so do so as soon as possible. The Saints greats that have already confirmed that they're going on this year's cruise are Pierre Thomas, Courtney Roby, Michael Lewis, Tyrone Hughes, and Delvin Breaux. join them and their families, along with the rest of the Saints cruise goers and their families, including myself and my family, not just for specific time periods during the course of the day or the course of the trip, but the entire trip. You're sharing a deck. You're eating dinner and lunch together. Sometimes, oftentimes, breakfast together. You're hanging out on the beach together. There's a few activities that are going to be a blast. A very competitive putt-putt golf tournament. I'm hearing more and more about a karaoke tournament as well, or karaoke competition, as well as a trivia tournament, along with Q&A sessions and just general BS sessions with the Saints greats that I mentioned before. Again, this trip is March 26th through March 30th. It is the biggest fundraiser that Get Checked or Checkout does during the course of the year. So by going, you're not only donating to a wonderful cause and wonderful people, but you are also treating yourself to a once-in-a-lifetime experience and a vacation. If you need any more details, have any questions about the trip, I will be happy to answer them. Just reach out to me via text, email, messenger, whatever is easiest for you. And I'd love to talk about it. This is a cause and a trip that I believe very strongly in. And I'm going to be a lifer from here on out. Again, that trip is March 26th through March 30th. Book that cabin today.
I'm excited for if there is going to be a karaoke battle, because whatever karaoke song Bob performs will be the intro for this podcast.
Beautiful.
I think that's the only fair trade, right? Like if a lot of these wrestlers, because we talk about wrestling intros and how we would like our show to be something like that, if all those guys can do their own music, Bob should be singing our intro, whatever it may be. I think it's the only fair way. You can see here on my screen and over on Bob's screen as well. That's where you can follow us both. For Bob on the Twitter, it's at BobbyR2613. And on the Facebook, just Bob Rose. Pretty simple. For myself, you can follow me at BT Boylan. Bob's over at Saints Wire. He's going to have a lot of fun things to write about this week, and as Bob just may have mentioned very so subtly, is very important to him and to me as Bob's co-host that you actually read Bob's work. I mean, it sounds like a small thing, but it means the absolute world, I know, to Bob, and certainly when I was writing, it meant the world to me when you guys would read it and leave thoughtful comments about your thoughts on our thoughts. So with that, until Wednesday, where we'll break down a little bit more of this game, we'll talk a little bit about next week with the New England Patriots coming to town. That's Bob Rose. I'm Brendan Boylan. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Bayou Blitz post-game show, a winning edition of the Bayou Blitz post-game show. So until Wednesday, find some peace, spread love, practice positivity. See you then. Who dat?